Welcome to the Charts podcast. In this episode, I'm pleased to welcome a longtime friend of Charts and a friend of myself, Rob Cantrell, the CEO of Atlantic Energy. Rob is a serial energy entrepreneur and a well-known and a respected figure in the North American energy space. Among the retail brands he has led and continues to lead, Flagship Power, Utility Rescue Holdings, and Pulse Power. Rob recently attended and participated in Charts North America in Houston, so we're catching up today to hear his key takeaways. He's in a great position to share his perspectives, having taken part in every Charts North America event and joined us in Iceland and Germany. So a very special friend of Charts you are, Rob. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's so good to be on with you, Dr. Larsen, and I am a friend of Charge, and I will always be a friend of Charge.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much more so. So I have a series of specific questions relating to what took place on stage in Houston, but I want to start with a very open-ended question. So, and that it goes as follows: what role do you see brands play in the energy space, and how is their role different there than elsewhere?
Well, that is a great question, and those people that know me know that I came from the telecommunications industry before I got into energy. And so I always compare and contrast those two businesses. And in my previous life in telecommunications, it was almost 90% brand and 10% technology. And I feel like with energy, it's reversed. It's 90% technology and only 10% brand, or at least it feels like that sometimes. But one of the reasons I got into energy is that I felt that energy was going to have that same kind of evolution that the telecommunication business had over the last 30 years. I mean, we went from rotary dial landline phones to a supercomputer in your pocket, right? And the energy business has not had, unfortunately, that same evolution. And I think that once the energy business will catch up with the innovation and things like that in the telecommunications business, that branding will then become more and more and more valuable in our business. So it's kind of a long answer to your question, but I think it's not as important as other industries right now. But I think as we evolve and as we mature as a business, it'll become more and more and more important.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a long answer. I think it's a great answer, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. And just to reflect on, the similarities between telecoms. I joined this space 10 years ago, and before that, I spent 5-6 years on my PhD, and using the same kind of reasoning. I was expecting it to travel down the same route as telecoms, and then it's just taking longer. But we'll see if you will have the same disruption going on. But we'll see. But on the topic of Charts, where we sat together in Houston last week only. So you interviewed Commissioner Tim Echols. He's the vice chair of the Georgia Public Service Commission. Did you find reassurance in his focus on providing certainty during such unpredictable times?
I did. I thought it was very interesting talking with Commissioner Echols that the state of Georgia has a lot longer term vision for their energy future than our federal government has. It was a little disconcerting, actually, that we're relying on a very, patchwork of the different states and their different plans. But it was a little bit more reassuring that, hey, no matter who is in the White House here, that the states keep their eye on the ball. And he talked about 15-year plans, 20-year plans. And, he mentioned whether he was in office or whether someone beats him in the reelection, that Georgia was going to continue to execute on their long-term strategy. So that made me feel a little bit better, be a little bit more reassured that when our White House flips back and forth between Republicans and Democrats and they have different energy expectations and different energy goals, that at least the states can stay the course and, keep it going and keep our energy progress on path, hopefully.
I totally agree. I heard this was my key takeaway also from what he said, that things will run on regardless of the politics. The energy will be on and they will think long term. So I agree.
Yeah, you could definitely feel the pressure that he felt for reelection, right? And so that also worries you a little bit, right? Because you think they may want to make short-term, decisions that will be popular, that will lead for them to be reelected, versus making hard, long-term decisions that are the best for the long-term sustainability of the state. But it seemed like they had a really good balance between those two things, making the tough long-term decisions as well as maybe some short-term decisions that would help them get reelected, which is what you always worry about elected officials, right? That they're not looking beyond the end of their term. They're only looking at how do I get reelected. But I didn't get that feeling at all from Commissioner Eccles at all.
Yeah, I agree. But let me take a step back here and ask you, what were your key takeaways from charts this year overall?
Well, I don't know if I have there are a couple specific things, but I think my general impression this year is very interesting. And I don't know if you would agree with me, Dr. Larsen, on this, but it feels like in years past, there has been this mad dash and everybody's talking green and everybody is talking renewables. And that's the topic. And how do we get there? How do we build a sustainable future? How do we do this? And it feels like those winds have shifted just a little. And we talked about a lot of other things this year besides that. So my kind of very 10,000 level takeaway is, are we seeing the rush to green, if you will, starting to slow? Is the pendulum slowing down and may it swing back the other way? Or is this just a pause because of the current administration isn't as green friendly as the past administration was? Is this a pause, or is this the beginning of a swing back the other way with the pendulum? What do you think about that? Did you get the same feeling?
You turn tables around here. No, I don't know, to be honest. I think you nailed the underlying idea behind it by saying, is this something because of the current administration, or is the pendulum moving? I don't know. Here in Europe, it's not slowing down per se, but I think well, I shouldn't be the one answering. Yeah, I'm asking you, Rob. So, but for charts, for sure, there wasn't this emphasis on green, and which is absolutely good. I mean, have you had like nuclear on stage, because that plays a role also, and we can debate how green is that, or is it green at all? People can debate that all day long, but it's more green than some, less green than others. But and of this year charts, I do agree that we just discussed business more.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And I think that, maybe you build this kind of chaotic momentum around green. And I think maybe some of the realities have, over the past few years, have set in that there are limitations, that green power is very volatile, or can lead to volatility in the space. We saw, what happened with the Ukraine war, with interruptions in natural gas supplies and other things, especially Europe had really moved to a lot, to try to get a lot greener. And so maybe there's, more of a settling in, like these are still our goals to get to, carbon-free world at some point, but maybe reality might be setting in that, maybe some of those goals are a little ambitious and we need to make more realistic goals on how to get there. So maybe some of the, the fanfare has settled into more planning stages instead of just hype, maybe. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, yeah.
And so marketers like you and I, we're all about the hype. So maybe we've moved on to talking about something else that's a little more hype worthy than green. And now green is old hat, and we just got to execute on the green plan. Maybe that's it.
No, excellent. Thanks for that input. What I also ask communicators, you and I, and what Charge is all about, how you communicate, not just to the end client, but also along the value chain. We need to get out of those shouting positions where if you're not 100% green, you're nothing. There must be room for oil and gas also in the green discussion, and sometimes they're not allowed to the table. So that's
Right.
that's a bad thing. So that's why we put nuclear on, just to open up the discussion. But so I guess that was a interesting discussion on green. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for opening it up. But I want to also to go more into charts and what happened on the floor there. So you've attended multiple events. So and you built multiple businesses in this space. From that perspective, did you pick up anything new last week?
Yeah. So I think one of the things I thought was extremely interesting was kind of the convergence of human resources and marketing. And it's funny, you don't think about things like that until you see them in a session or whatever. And some of my past companies, some of the employees don't even know some of the cool things that you're out there in the market doing, right? Some employees don't even know what your messaging is. What are we supposed to be to the world? What is our mission? What are we communicating out there, right? And so that was a very interesting session to me. Not that I didn't know those things. It's sometimes you just need to be reminded about that. And so we're a small company, so we kind of know everything that's going on, but our marketing team is very involved with employee events, and we want employees to be involved in our marketing events and things like that. So there's a lot of overlap, but that's easier for us because we're a small company. But I found it interesting to hear that larger companies are finding, it more important to make sure that those two, departments and those two, parts of their company are spending a lot of time, coordinating and making sure that their messaging, both internal and external, remains consistent. So, I thought that was very interesting, and it was good. It was kind of confirmation of kind of what we did, and that we're involved. Our marketing team and our HR team are very involved together in a lot of things. It was kind of good confirmation that we were headed in the right direction there.
No, I agree, and it's nice to hear that HR and marketing are emerging, because it's all about people on the outside, people on the inside. But because I work in the space and we have an index that measures the brand on the inside, and sometimes we have difficulties because communication and marketing, they want to run it, but HR say, "Hey, come on, you have nothing to do with." You have nothing to do with the employees. So really, it's an interesting thing, but it needs to merge much more than it has, and I'm glad to see it's merging. But looking at it from Atlantic's energy perspective, you talked about the HR marketing part. Can any of your takeaways that you took away from charts be applied to how you're doing business today?
Yeah, I think I don't want to point to a specific thing or two, because I don't want to give away all of our secrets that we are going to steal from our competitors that we saw there at Charge. But I think generally, I love the nature of the conference, and it's really just for us that we want to make sure that we're not in our company bubble or our Texas bubble or our United States bubble, and that we are looking what people are doing outside of our bubble, right? We get so involved in the day-to-day operations and trying to make the widgets work and things like that you really want to step back every now and then and see, hey, what are other people doing that they're willing to brag about, and what are other people trying, and you just want to make sure that you are stepping outside of your own market, your own company and you're seeing those trends in the industry and what other people are doing and making sure that you're not being left behind, truthfully. And so I think that, we really like to use Charge for that. If we see somebody doing something innovative, we're like, okay, that's pretty cool. We need to put that on our list of things that we need to look at over the next year or so, right? That's really the biggest use that we use, is to make sure that there is not trends and things going on that we're getting left behind.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that answer. Great answer. My final question. So, as I indicated and said explicitly, you are a supporter of Charge, and you attend multiple times, and you sponsored this event, and you've given it so much color and help. But you are Rob Cantrell. You are a type of person. Most energy people, utility people, whatever we call these, retail people, whatever we call these people, they are not like you, and they will not attend an event like Charge. What do you say to those people that would never consider attending a marketing, brand, communications event like Charge? Which words would you use to say, hey, you must come and do what?
You want me to do your recruiting poster for you?
Yes.
My biggest takeaway is always, you can't spend a day and a half listening to this group of extremely smart people without learning anything. And every year I come away with 2 or 3 or 4 really good ideas. And it may not be something that somebody said, but it would be something that somebody reminded me of from something in my past or whatever. So, there's the networking element of seeing people that you haven't seen in a year and catching up with them and rekindling those contacts. And, we always have a business partner or new business partner or two from every conference, it seems. And we end up, that alone pays for the cost of the ticket, right? That we find a new business partner to partner with on something. But I think also it's just continuous education. I know you're a PhD guy, you're a professor, so you're always educating, but a lot of us don't, right? We get in our bubble and we don't continuously grow and we don't continuously learn. And that would be the biggest thing that I would tell people. You need to continuously listen to new ideas, and you need to continuously improve yourself and your company through learning. And as far as conferences go, Charge is wonderful in terms of learning new things and hearing new approaches to things.
Thanks for sharing, Rob. I will use this for recruiting for sure. Some snippets of this, but it's a true pleasure having you involved, and thanks for taking the time to do this podcast with us. So sincerely, thank you, and I look forward to see you next year, maybe even sooner, somewhere, someplace.
I hope so too. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.